Now we're going to be talking about rounding and estimating, and actually we're going to be doing more of the rounding, which is an estimation, but I want to focus on very, very specific rules. Whenever you round something or you estimate it, you're just taking kind of a guess at it, and it's like you're just kind of getting a ballpark figure. Well, there are times whenever that might be appropriate, but at the same time, especially with the mathematics, if you're not given something very specific to round to, then we could all have slightly different answers and they might all be correct because technically an estimation is just that. It's a guess. So we're going to do this with very specific rules. Okay, you must remember your place values. Without place values, oops, let me move that back up again. Without your place values, you're not going to have any idea, what we're rounding to. So we've included another table here. If you need to pause it and look at it and refresh yourself about place value, you absolutely should. Now here are our rules. In order to round, this is what we do. We look one place to the right of what we're rounding. Now, if that number to the right is 5 or more, we round up because it's more than halfway to the next number. If the place to the right is 4 or less, we leave the numbers alone, or the number alone, I should say, and drop the remaining digits to zeros. Now, that may sound a little bit confusing, but let's look at some practical example and see exactly what we're talking about here. Okay, here we have an example that says round 2,791 to the nearest hundred. Okay, so I've written out 2,791 and I've looked at each of these as place value. The 1 is in the ones position, the 9 is in the tens, the 7 is in the hundreds position, and the 2 is in the thousands position. Well, they told us to round to the nearest hundred. So this is the number that we're going to be focusing in on. That's in the hundreds position. But remember, our rules said we have to look one place to the right. So if we look one place to the right of that, this is what determines whether we round up or we don't. And this number in the tens position, just to the right, is a 9. Now, 9 is more than halfway to the next number. So this is what tells us that we're going to be rounding this 7 up one digit. So we'll have the 2,000, but we're rounding the 7 up a digit to 8. And then everything behind it just becomes 0. So we have a 0 for the tens position and a 0 for the ones position. This is how we round that to the nearest hundred. Let's do another example. Here we have one that says round 82,198 to the nearest thousand. So I'm going to write that number out again so we have a little bit of room to work. Now we need to determine what is in the thousands position because that's where we're rounding. In this case, the 2 is in the thousands position. So we're going to look one place to the right of that, which is a 1. Now remember, our rule said if this number is 5 or more, we round up. If it's 4 or less, we do not. So each one, since this is a 1, we're not going to round up. We're just going to replace each one of those digits with zeros. So rounding this to the nearest thousand becomes 82,000 even. We have to replace the rest of the remaining digits with zeros. So that would be our rounding.